Slater Crusaders, America's the greatest country in the world. Super glad you're here. Gosh, we have so much going on. It's crazy. It's hard to know where we are, let alone where we're going, right? I usually like to focus on where we're headed. I don't even know where we are at this moment. What's coming next? I got no idea. No one does. I go between a 4 and a 7 on the severity scale, right? So I'm asking everyone I know, so where are you? Scale 1 to 10. So 1 is, this is such a no big deal, like totally overblown, we should all go back to work tomorrow. And 10 is like horror movie, Walking Dead, we're all gonna die, okay? We're definitely not either of those. So I go between like a 4, which is like, oh geez, maybe this like isn't that big, to a 7, which is like, oh, this is a huge deal. And like, I don't just slightly fluctuate. I'm like 1 minute I'm a 4, and then the next minute I'm a 7, and I hate that. Sometimes I'll like, with other things I'll waver between like a 6 and a 7 or something, right? But I've never between a 4 and a 7, and I'm not comfortable here. And then, you know, I hear things like, well, it's only older people. And then you hear stories out of Italy. One doctor said at his hospital, they're not treating anyone over 60. You're like, well, that's not that old, 60. They're like, oh, it's only people with underlying health issues. Well, that's 60 underlying health issues or not. And that could still be what we're facing here in America the next coming days. And then you see people how it's not even underlying health issues at all. Like that doesn't even have any factor whatsoever. David Latt, he's some lawyer, legal commentator, blue checkmark guy on Twitter. He's 44, 153 pounds. He rarely drinks. He does have exercise-induced asthma, which he manages with an inhaler. But he ran the New York City Marathon twice, walks 25 miles a week, works out high-intensity workouts 3 times a week. This was his diary. He's got COVID, the Wuhan flu. And he's been keeping a Twitter diary. So this is him on March 17th, so last week. He said, I'm constantly weak and winded. I'm hooked up to oxygen 24/7. Even with oxygen, the simplest tasks are extremely difficult. This morning, this ex-marathoner could barely walk the 5 feet from his bed to the toilet. Chest heaving with the labor of breathing because I was going to collapse if I stood too long. He's 44. Exercises. I'm usually a fast eater. Today it took me 90 minutes to eat my lunch because I kept getting winded. I'm so weak the fork wobbled each time I lifted it to my mouth. And he talks about, well, it's only supposed to be old people and it's only supposed to be this, whatever. But for those who get severe cases like, and some people, it's not a big deal, right? Some people, you get no symptoms, some just, whatever, not a big deal. But for those who get severe cases like me, it's been hell. I've had 10 days in counting with no real improvement of fever, fatigue, joint aches, chills, cough, respiratory difficulty. I've never been this sick in my entire life. That was last week. As of yesterday, his family announced that he has been intubated and he's on a ventilator. He's 44. I said, oh, so he's got asthma. That's a respiratory issue. Of course, that's going to be a problem. Even though he's young, he still's got an underlying health issue. All right, Cameron Vanderberg. He won the gold medal for South Africa in the 2012 London Olympics, and then he won the silver in the 2016 Olympics. He's a swimmer. All right, so we got a gold medalist swimmer, still a young guy. He had it. He said, I've been struggling with it for 14 days. By far the worst virus I've endured, despite being a healthy individual with strong lungs, living a healthy lifestyle and being young. He's 31. Although the most severe symptoms have eased, his fever, I'm still struggling with serious fatigue and a residual cough I can't shake. Any physical activity like walking leaves me exhausted for hours. Please look after yourself. Health comes first. COVID-19 is no joke. That was one of my friends' experience too. One of my buddies' strongest, this guy's like a specimen. You give him a hug and like his back is just like ripped, like he's jacked and strong. The military guy. He had it, we think, we didn't get tested or anything, but he slept for 18 hours. He was just exhausted for 2 days, just couldn't move at all. I don't want more of those. I don't want more of those stories. I mean, those are healthy, otherwise healthy people. And imagine if we didn't do anything that we've been doing, how prevalent those would be, right? I want to play this GIF here real quick. This is it's a good visual that helps keep it all in perspective of the importance of the social distancing. So there's the one person who has it, and that's with an R naught of 3, right? So one person gives it to 3, and you see how many people get it at the end. But here's, if one person stays home, I know the GIF moves fast, right? But here, you see how quickly it spreads, right? But if one person stays home, one person doesn't go to work, right? You can see how many people in the end. Let's watch the continuation one more time. I've watched it like 1,000 times because it's like oddly fun to watch. Right? Look at the difference that makes in the end. Beautiful. Mathematically, too, I want to play that one video here. This is an intensive care specialist professor, Hugh Montgomery, talking about how quickly viruses spread. Again, the R naught, like I talk like I'm some fancy epidemiologist. Oh, the R naught number, that's how many people one person gives it to, right? So we don't know what the R naught really of this is. We've been kind of operating off of 3, right? So one person will give it to 3, and then each of those will give it to 3 more, right? But we don't really know. He assumes this for this analysis. The number isn't really even so much important as much as just the fact that our minds cannot intuitively comprehend the growth factor of this. Here's the professor.
Normal flu, if I get that, I'm going to infect on average about 1.3, 1.4 people, okay? If there was such a division.
Yeah.
And if those 1.3, 1.4 people gave it to the next lot, that's the second time it gets passed on. By the time that's happened 10 times, I've been responsible for about 14 cases of flu. This coronavirus is very, very infectious, so every person passes it to 3. Now that doesn't sound like much of a difference, but if each of those 3 passes it to 3, and that happens at 10 layers, I have been responsible for infecting 59,000 people. Now,
I actually wasn't on top of that maths when you were doing that. Okay, that did come as a shock, yeah.
Right.
See how that makes no sense at all? An R naught of 1.4 means you can infect up to 14 people, 10 divisions down. 14, or an R naught of 3. The difference is 1.4 to 3. That's not a huge difference. And the difference is you infect either 14 people or 59,000 people. Like, how could that possibly be? And this is why, like, think of that again when you ever get to the place of like, this was overblown or this was unnecessary or we didn't need to do all this stuff. Because what's the big deal anyway? Well, that difference. Are you going to want to infect 14 people or with this coronavirus, you want to infect 56,000 people? Big, big difference there. I'll give a couple numbers here. This is San Diego County. Is where I live. We have a population of 3.3 million people, so it's bigger than a lot of states. So it's kind of a good representation of things. But we have 826 ventilators for 8,000 hospital beds in San Diego. So 826 ventilators. 500 of those are currently in use, just the people who need them. So just before the Wuhan flu. So we have about 300 ventilators. Now I've heard things that people can do to make one ventilator serve multiple people, right? You kind of jerry-rig this like valve and you split it and you do this and right. So maybe, let's say we could get each ventilator to support 4 people. Now, that's probably not possible or practical. I read some other reports from a respiration specialist who's working in the hospital, said he's never seen anything like it. He said these machines are turned on full blast. He's never done before, right? So you need all the machine to take care of one person. But let's say you could split it to 4 people, right? We'll go with that math to be conservative. That's 1,200 ventilators in our county. So I'm going to be very conservative here. If only 10% of San Diego County gets it, and maybe that'll be true because remember the dots separating because we've done all the social distancing, so maybe that'll end up being the case. But if 10% of our county gets it, and let's say only 1% need a ventilator, that's still 3,300 patients. That's still 3x of what we have. And I'm being super generous with each respirator could take care of 4 people, which probably isn't true. So we're still 3x, and everyone over that threshold will die. So that's what we're facing. Or not. Or not. Or we flatten the curve long enough and we don't have that many people, or we have that many people, but over a longer time, and we can have a respirator for everyone, right? Or way worse, right? Let's say it's not 10% of the people who get it. Let's say it's 50%, like our governor warned, and it's still 1% of the people who need a ventilator. That's 17,000 people who need a ventilator, and we only have 300. So that means in the county of San Diego, we have about 25% of the deaths that the entire country has during a bad flu year. That's just one county would have as many, 25% of the deaths as the whole country has during a bad flu year, right? So it could be any of those, we don't know. And that's why it's so super frustrating. We still have no idea. What's hard to grasp And I gotta remind myself this every day. Truly, every hour, I gotta remind myself of this. When I fluctuate between that 4 and a 7. Everything that happens each day, so whatever is gonna happen today, is baked in to what we did 2 weeks ago. So last week we talked, well, 2 weeks ago we talked about exponential growth. And then last week we talked about lag time. Right, and that's what that is. We have about a 2-week lag. So things are gonna get worse this week. The Surgeon General said that this week is going to get bad. Now that doesn't mean this is the peak. Right? This is when it's gonna start to get bad. But when that happens, that does not mean that the social distancing and everything isn't working, because we're on a 2-week lag. We're not gonna know if today's social distancing worked until, what's the date today? What's 2 weeks from today? Today's the 24th, until April 7th? Right? Like, so the 2-week lag is super frustrating, which just drags this whole thing out even more, which leads to Jesse Kelly's big point, and rightfully so, and I'm glad he's been really strong on this. Can we just intentionally crash the world economy for months? The governor of New York the other day talked about 9 months. He threw this out there. He said, we may have to do this for 9 months. I don't know what this means, right? He says we have to do this. What's this? But even if we have to do this for another month, people can't survive that. I'm fine. I'll just be totally upfront. I'm fine. I'm on salary. My salary went down a little bit because of some different advertising and stuff, but whatever. Like I'm fine. But I got some friends who own a business. One of them, he has 150 employees. He said he can float for a while, but not much more than a month. So he has not only the stress of keeping his family safe, his family's livelihood with his business that he's built his entire life, but he also has this oppressive burden of what he's gonna do for the 150 families that he, as the business owner, provides for. And he's just crushed by that. That's a lot. How long will it go on? I have no idea. Sam Wang, he's an economist or scientist at Princeton. He said that the median time from infection to symptom is 5 days, right? So you get the virus, and then 5 days later is when you get the symptom. And then it's another 14 days before you die, if you do, right? So it's 14, so it's from 0 to 5 plus 14, that's 19 days. So he says, so we might start to see a slowdown 3 weeks after the shelter-in-place directives went into effect. 3 weeks. We're about a week in. In the meantime, I want to quote Dan Price here. He says, I'm the CEO of a small business that processes payments for other small businesses. Our data shows that 50% of small business revenue is gone already. 50% gone already. Meanwhile, Walmart stock is at an all-time high. Amazon's hiring 100,000 people. No joke, we are on a path towards small business extinction, swallowed whole. To put it into perspective, the worst recession in nearly a century was 2008. 2.8 million people lost their jobs, 2.8 million. The forecast for this week is 2.3 million. This week. Mostly at small businesses who don't have the resources to weather the storm. I really hate to keep saying this. Like at my core, I hate saying this. But what's next? No one knows. So let's focus on as many knowns as we possibly can. What do we know? We shared a quote the other day, and I love it. I keep going back to this, that things are going to get more difficult and more confusing. And because of that, you are more clear-headed and less stressed right now, today, than you might be at any point in the next several weeks. So take advantage of your clarity. I love that. Today, take advantage of your clarity. That's true with so many things, and it's true with the economy right now, which things are, right, I think only gonna get worse. But it's not too late to make good decisions for your family today. You know, we're looking at our 401k, looking at our IRA. It's one thing in normal times, but how about in times of turmoil, which we're in the midst of? We're looking at, as we said, an unprecedented recession here. The head of the St. Louis Fed the other day talked about unemployment rate of 30%, maybe a 50% drop in GDP. Like, what are we, like, I say that because I know you've thought about gold before, silver and gold. It's recession-proof, safe haven for your retirement. And right now, I think the name of the game is security. As everything's upside down, everything's crazy, everything's changing, but security as much as possible. What's more secure than gold? American Hartford Gold Group. Right? These are your guys, my guys, trusted leaders in gold and silver. They make it super easy to get started. Family owned, A+ rating, Better Business Bureau, top from Trustpilot, like all the reviews, like top. And until you can truly hold in your hands, hold a precious metal, you can't really know the experience of being in control of your own retirement. You thought you were in control of your own retirement, and then the stock market crashed, and how much money did you just lose, right? If you were planning on retiring, right, it's just gone. So how much control did you really have? None. You got precious metals, you're in total control, and you're in control of the moment as well when things hit the fan here. Give them a call. Tell them about the first. Tell them about Mike Slater. Mention Mike Slater. Mention the first. And Hartford Gold's going to give you a free silver coin. So give them a call. Text them now. Mention the first, and they'll give you that free silver coin to get you started. American Hartford Gold Group. The number's at the bottom here, 866-511-2758. Or go to AmericanHartfordGold.com. Make sure you do /free coin in order to get that free coin. Why not? We're actually going to talk with the CEO of Hartford Gold Group coming up a little later in the show, get some more insight into what's happening here. Coming up next, Allison Schrader from the Wall Street Journal. She wrote a great piece in the Wall Street Journal about risk versus uncertainty. They sound the same, but they're actually two different things. We'll talk with her next. True story, Mike Slater, spread the word. Hey, Slater Crusaders. So we've been preaching humility this entire time throughout this whole thing because no one knows. No one knows. But I think it's really important to get down as best we can. What do we not know? Right? Let's be specific about what we don't know. I read a great piece in the Wall Street Journal the other day by Allison Schrader. She is from the Manhattan Institute, and her book is An Economist Walks into a Brothel and Other Unexpected Places to Understand Risk. Allison Schrader, how are you, Allison?
Good, thanks for having me.
My pleasure, I'm glad you're here. So your article was Risk, Uncertainty, and Coronavirus. So, and I love defining terms, and you do that obviously so well here. What's the difference between risk and uncertainty?
So risk is measurable. So you never know what the future holds, but sometimes it's more unknowable than others. Risk is you can take an estimate of what's going to happen. It's a pretty reliable estimate. And what's great about it is once and sort of get a sense of what's the worst case scenario, what's the best case scenario, how probable they are, you can manage it and you can decide on trade-offs of, okay, this policy is going to do this, but it's going to have costs, but I'm reducing this. The problem with uncertainty is you have absolutely no idea. You don't have this nice probability distribution to make trade-offs with. It's just totally unknowable. Maybe this is going to be way worse than anything we've ever seen. Maybe it's not going to be so bad. We have absolutely no idea because you can measure risk with data. Right? But we don't really have reliable data yet. This virus is way too new and we don't really understand still how it affects different populations, how different countries have different risk factors. It's just really still unknowable.
It's so right. And I know you're not a psychologist, but you're helping explain my anxiety is kind of a big word, but like my uncomfortableness of the whole moment, because I think that's right. I'm trying to risk assess and I'm trying to balance trade-offs, and there's a big conversation about what we do with the economy, like in light of how many lives might be, but we're not balancing risk. We're living in a state of unknown, and that's causing anxiety. Is that right? Does that make sense, or am I right?
Exactly. Like I said, uncertainty is also a lot more uncomfortable for people and causes people to panic a lot more. I mean, especially think about it, like everything about our daily lives is completely in the air. Like we have no idea when we're even going to get back to sort of any sense of normalcy. I think certainly for me, but I imagine for everyone in the world, we've never lived with this sort of state of such severe uncertainty. So it's no wonder everyone's feeling a little anxious or a lot anxious.
Okay, so help us, let's go down a list of like things we don't know. That's a good place to start, right? We may not, it's one thing, we wish we could know the things, but let's at least identify the things we don't know. So what are these unknowns?
We still don't really even know how infectious this disease is, like the so-called R-naught. We don't really have even a good sense of death rate. We have no good sense of how that varies by population. Like first we're told, young people, this is going to be a cakewalk for them. And now we're seeing a bunch of them be hospitalized. we have no idea how long this is going to go on. We don't know if warm weather is going to affect this. We don't know how soon we're going to get a treatment, how good the treatments are. We don't know how good when a vaccine is going to be available. I mean, really, we know absolutely nothing. Or like, let alone do we know how well sort of even China can tell us data. I mean, if they live with higher levels of pollution, have a different age structure. I mean, is that data even informative for America, which, except for places like New York, has a lot more dispersion of their population? I mean, you can just see, it's just, I said, I'm not an epidemiologist. I don't know anything about healthcare or public health, but I'm an economist who, measures risk a lot. And, I know how much data and how the amount of data you need to make reliable estimates. And it just doesn't seem like we have that.
I'll throw in, I'm totally with you on all that. I'll throw in there kids, how it affects kids. We think it doesn't, but really, who knows and how things change. We don't know mutations perhaps later in the future. We don't know any lasting effects, right? So let's say you get this and you recover, but like, how is your recovery for the next couple of years? Okay, so now I'm back to overwhelmed. Just talk to me about data. Like, how much data would one need? What does that look? I'm not in your world. So like, how much data does someone need in order to make some sort of reliable estimate of things?
Well, I mean, more data is always better because you can make more reliable estimates, especially, as I said, if you have to have control for things like population, age distributions, pollution, smoking, all of these things. I mean, ideally, you have thousands and thousands of data points. I mean, the good thing is I said, this is why testing is so important. And as we ramp up testing, we're going to really start moving from uncertainty into risk, and we can start making trade-offs. Because I think everyone I talk to behind closed doors doesn't want to admit this, but they're like, is this worth it? Like, would it be sufficient just to not have big conferences, but let us sort of gather in groups of 5 rather than total lockdowns? But we can't know. Yeah. So as we get more and more data, and I've been heartened that, when you hear Cuomo talk, he kind of makes hints at this, that one of the reasons we're ramping up testing is we can start weighing trade-offs and maybe letting people live some semblance of normalcy.
Okay. If you could pick any one of these to know right now, which of those unknowns would you wish to know the most?
I think I'd really want to know death rates by age, because I think that's what scares everyone, or hospitalization rates by age. Because I think hospitalization is also the big constraint. Like, if we had unlimited hospital capacity, then I think people could make a case more for just letting this run rampant.
Yeah. Yeah, or quarantining certain ages of people as opposed to everyone.
Yeah, or actually, while I'm at it, maybe even just like if we could just magically universally test everyone. I guess that would be also sort of a real game changer.
Yes, because that would give you the data you would need to move forward. Okay, give me let's say we had data, right? Or we get these tests or whatever. How do you, as an economist, and I would need to ask this to many different people in many different professions and expertises, but how would you balance trade-offs? How do you think about it? Right? I'm obviously not looking for like the final answer, like this amount of money is worth this life. I'm not looking for that. But how do you think of trade-offs as we decide what there should be?
Well, I mean, so we know the cost to shutting down the economy, is going to be widespread unemployment. And but there's also other trade-offs to that, sort of certainly other public health trade-offs, like people missing out on routine health screenings could cause all sorts of other health issues. People being less prone to go to the doctor or the hospital if they're having a health emergency. Certainly depression and isolation. And obviously the huge economic costs and what that does to people. So I think certainly for the next couple weeks, it's no brainer that this is what we need to do. But if this goes on for months, I think there are potentially other big costs that, policymakers have to weigh.
Yeah, really good. Okay, Allison, can we reconvene? Is there any other final point you want to make, like something you wish you could just scream from the rooftops that people are missing?
No, I think that's it. Just as I said, more testing, more data, then we can know more and finally make some good decisions.
Yeah, I love the way you think, obviously. So I maybe as we kind of start talking more about how to get back to whatever normal might look like, I hope we can talk again and start making some trade-offs.
Yeah, anytime.
Beautiful. Allison Schrager. The book is An Economist Walks into a Brothel and Other Unexpected Places to Understand Risk. Allison Schrager, thank you, ma'am. Have a great day. I look forward to thinking about trade-offs. Right? I look forward to having some data so we can actually make some decisions and not live in this state of uncertainty, which none of us are comfortable with. More coming up. True story. Mike Slater, spread the word. Hey, Slater Crusaders, we talk a lot about everyone else in the media being overly dramatic all the time. Please? Yeah, same camera?
Yeah, same camera.
Sorry, 1 second. All right, you ready, Colin?
Yes.
All right, here we go. 3, 2, and 1. Hey, Slater Crusaders, we talk about the media being overly dramatic all the time about everything, just constantly, but particularly in these last, few weeks, and it's not appropriate to be overly dramatic in a time like this. We need to be truthful and honest, but not over the top. I say that because when I use the word turmoil to describe our economy, I think that's fair. The definition of turmoil is a state of great disturbance, confusion, or uncertainty. I think we're in a state of turmoil. So to help us understand this and what we can do in this time, I want to talk to SANFORD MANN. He's the CEO of Hartford Gold Group. Mr. Mann, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good. How are you, Mr. Gallagher?
Good. I'm glad you're here. So help us understand first the state of where we are right now with the economy, what you're hearing, and where you think we're headed.
Absolutely. Thank you. Every single day we're hearing more reports from different smart individuals. These guys get paid a lot of money to be right, and they're increasing their forecast of the doom and gloom that's ahead for us. Early last week, Goldman Sachs, they came out and said they see GDP constricting by 5% next quarter. That was increased by a UCLA economist at 6.5%. That was increased by Bank of America to 14%. And over the weekend, Morgan Stanley just came out and said, we see it at 30%. And what we're seeing more and more of is the doom and gloom ahead, because in essence, our economy is frozen. Layoffs, according to the Federal Reserve, unemployment is going to be 30%. They just said that on Sunday. 30% unemployment in America. We went from a month and a half ago, everything to be rosy, lowest unemployment in history. Trump did a great job of really boosting this economy up. Stocks at an all-time high. To the stock market is actually lower today than it was in August of 2016 before Trump was in office. All those gains have been wiped out in a month, what took 4 years to build. And according to a lot of analysts,
please go ahead.
According to a lot of analysts, there's a second dip coming. So the first dip was based on the fear, the constriction. The second dip is actually going to be based on real facts and real numbers. Once we see the unemployment, once we see how much money the Fed has to print, once we see the small businesses and medium businesses require more capital, that's going to constrain the economy to a further and deeper level.
Wow. What's wild about all this is not only are all those things true that you just mentioned, but happen like that, right? So it's one thing if we get to an unemployment rate of whatever, 30% over time, but to have it happen overnight is truly unprecedented here. So when all this comes together, what do you see happening, right? All these different factors you just mentioned, what's next?
The Federal Reserve is doing its job right now. They're saying they're going to boost or support the economy in any which way they can. Unfortunately, what they've done is they started using tools to boost an economy to prepare for recession before the impact happened. Once the impact happened, interest rates were at a 7-year low. Currently, rates are at a 0. You can't do anything else with rates. They've already printed $2.2 trillion last week, and they're prepared to print trillions more. So the folks that it impacts are folks that are in cash. If you have a dollar and they print a dollar, in essence, your dollar just lost value. So what we're going to continue to see is with the printing of money is devaluation of currency. So your buying power is going to go down.
Yeah. So what does that look like for someone's life?
Basically, if you've saved up and prepared for retirement, whether it's cash or retirement accounts, your purchasing power of that cash is not going to take you as far. That's number one. Number two, the investments that you've made that you've prepared for. You spent 40 years working your job, setting aside money in a 401k plan, going into retirement, converting that into an IRA, and preparing to live off those funds for the next 20 to 30 years. You're in for a rude awakening. That money may not last you, and that money may not even be accessible. Currently, the system is open, but what we're seeing is they could close the stock market at any time. If you need to liquidate funds and get your money, you're out of luck.
Yeah, jeez. Okay, let's talk other options. So why gold? Where does gold fit in this scenario? How and why is it different?
Sure. We've been touting for years. In a good economy, 10% of your assets should be allocated into physical gold and silver. And a lot of investment gurus, a lot of economists agree with that mentality. Recently, we've increased our position in gold, and we've said 10% is not enough. 10% is to prepare. 10% is like having 10 gallons of water stored aside for your worst case scenario. Once the impact happens, you increase your exposure to physical assets. End of the day, gold's in your hand. You own it. You don't need to call a stockbroker to liquidate it and send you a wire. It's in your hand. You own it. So what we're advising clients right now is increase your exposure to gold and silver. Now, as we speak right now, gold's on fire. It's up over $100 in the last 2 days. It's settling in around $1,600 an ounce right now. And what we've seen is the gold price not only skyrocket in recent days, but the biggest factor is limited availability. When you go online trying to buy gold, 99% of retailers are sold out. They're not even giving you an ETA when delivery can occur. And we prepared for this. We actually have gold available to deliver. Slight delay on delivery times, and we have silver available for delivery. But we're recommending Americans prepare, just like you're preparing at home.
Yeah, with food and water and everything else. You keep mentioning like physical and holding. So there's options, right? Because there's something called like paper gold, right? And what's that?
Sure.
And why is that not as good? Or I don't want to put that in your mouth, but like why is that different?
Mike, I share this with clients, prospective clients. Are you a gun owner, Mr. Gallagher?
Yes. Yeah.
Great. Assuming you have a Glock or a Smith & Wesson, something to that level, correct? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Glock.
Why did you... A Glock, great. Why did you buy a Glock? Why didn't you buy the stock of Glock? Why'd you buy the actual gun? Right? And
if a bad guy comes to my house, I'm not going to show him my stock certificates.
Exactly. Same thing with gold. Paper gold during a good economy isn't a bad option. When things get tough, paper gold, you have to go through a liquidation process. It's a whole different ballgame. We're recommending physical gold in your hands right now. You're not investing in a water company. You're buying physical water currently. So your goals of that gold is to protect yourself. And portfolio protection is one thing when you buy it in paper. But when you're buying it physically, you're protecting your family. You're protecting your buying power. You have it with you. Should things really hit the fan and the dollar continuing to lose value, based on our debt that we owe other countries, if they call our debt and the dollar goes away, what are you left with? A piece of paper, which is backed by what? The faith that the U.S. government's going to honor that.
Yeah, the U.S. government if they're about to pass this stimulus package that's bigger than the bank bailouts and the stimulus from 2008, 2009. Like just like that, crazy. What's the difference? Yeah, go ahead.
And in 2008, it took 257 days for the stock market to lose 40% of its value. This time around, it was in less than 30 days. This is the largest drop that we've ever seen. Even the 1929 depression isn't comparable to this. What we're seeing is unprecedented, uncharted, and they're going to continue to have to act with stimuli, the Federal Reserve and the government.
Yeah. What's the difference between buying gold or silver, I guess, in a situation that's more like for like survival, I guess, was like the word, like if it hits the fan, as you mentioned, versus IRA retirement thinking? And where are your clients right now? How should we be thinking today in those two options?
Sure. Yeah, generally, before the impact happened, about 70% of our business was through retirement accounts. You could put gold bars silver bars, gold coins, silver coins inside of a retirement account to prepare. Currently, what we're seeing is not only are the IRA clients coming out in full force. I mean, we had a client last week. She sent us a statement. She was preparing back in January and kind of, look, when the urgency is not there, we take our time. And she was talking with us in January. She sent her statement over. It had $1 million in it in January. 2 weeks ago, she said to us, I'm ready to do this. Again, her statement said $1 million because it's a paper statement that was not updated. When she called her custodian, her account value was in the $600,000 range, which is scary. And she had a real loss of almost $400,000 just in that last couple of months. What we're seeing, and I'm sorry, my brain moves really fast. So you asked me a question, and honestly, I've got a million things on my mind. I have a company of 70 people that, we're still working remotely right now, and I'm working on inventory issues and all these other things. So if you give me that question one more time.
Totally. Difference between survival and like IRA buying.
Oh, excellent. What we're seeing on the survival buying right now currently is a lot of people are hoarding silver. See, the old adage goes, you buy silver to buy the loaf of bread. You buy gold to buy the bakery. Yeah. So a lot of our clients right now are preparing, and we've got a bunch of assets in stock. My favorite asset for times like this are silver half dollars. I love silver half dollars. It's a two-pronged approach. The half dollar is silver, so it has the investment aspect that you're looking for, but it's survival. When I grew up, we had coffee cans full of half dollars in the garage. It was normal. My grandfather would pull these aside from the drawer when he went to grocery shopping. Those coins currently are some of the only coins that we've actually used to barter and trade with in history. They're recognizable. People know what they are. Today, a half dollar's worth about $11. It can get you goods and services for about $11, although the face value is 50 cents. What's really amazing and how silver works, especially for people who are listening who don't really understand what gold and silver and how they work. In 1946, a mercury dime, a silver mercury dime, it was 10 cents face value. You could buy a loaf of bread for 10 cents in 1946. Today, that same half dollar is worth $2.50. And I was at the market a couple of weeks ago. I'm actually trying to stay away from the markets given the climate. I saw a Wonder White loaf of bread for $1.99. And that mercury dime, which is worth $2.50 today, will still buy you that loaf of bread and pay the taxes and give you a couple cents left over. So that's what silver has done for us. It locks in your buying power.
So we talked about the why. We got about 30 seconds or a minute. Can you talk about the how? If no one's ever done this before, it may sound like daunting or like a lot. What's the process look like?
We make it super simple. The first thing I recommend is give one of our guys a call. It's a 3-step process. If you're doing it inside of an IRA, you would tell us, the custodian. We would help you to contact that custodian, and we'll do all the paperwork for you. The custodian would then send the funds over to your IRA that can hold physical gold, and then you tell us how much gold, how much silver you want inside of there. It's a 3-step process. On the physical aspect is we accept bank wires or personal checks. You send us the money, we lock in the gold or silver that you want to buy, and then we ship it to you. It's really simple. We have some of the largest selection in the United States for gold and silver products, and currently we can deliver a lot of our products in 2 weeks or less.
Okay, wow, okay, good, we need that. Okay, where can we do all this, Sanford?
AmericanHartfordGoldGroup.com, and you can search us, American Hartford Gold Group, A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau. We've got over 600 trusted reviews online. We've got a lot of, and I don't want to crosstalk. You do great work. Bill O'Reilly, he's another one of our fans, a client of ours. We're aligned with Mr. O'Reilly and really appreciate his help, appreciate your help through all this as well. But American Hartford Gold Group, you can search us, and you can give us a call, and our toll-free number is 800-462-0071. And again, that's 800-462-0071.
I can't fathom a better time. Like there could not be a better time than right now, like today in the midst of this. It's absurd. There could not be a better time for this. Sanford Mann, Hartford, American Hartford Gold Group. Mr. Mann, it's an honor. Thank you, sir.
A pleasure as well. Always love talking to you. You do great work out there, and we'll get through this. We'll get through this. And I, there's an old saying: you got to have the 3 G's in life: God, gold, and guns. And that's true. That's where we're at.
If you're missing one of those, most of us have 2 of the 3. Let's get the third.
We've already got God. I'm going to assume that. You've already got your gun. You need your gold at this point.
That's good. Good work. AmericanHartfordGoldGroup.com. All right, beautiful. Mr. Mann, thank you, sir. Thanks for staying open. Appreciate you.
Be well.
True story. Mike Slater, spread the word. Hey, Crusaders. There's so much politics we could talk about right now. I'll just be honest. I'm not interested right now. We'll get to it. We'll get to it one of these days. I'm certain. And everyone else will, I'm sure, on the first 2, and that's great because we need to. But I just can't right now. I want to talk about this instead. There's a book called The Plague by Albert Camus, French guy, published in 1947, and it was right after the war, and it's a book about a plague. But it's really about suffering. It's about human suffering. This is an analysis from Sean Illing. He said the key is to recognize the universality of suffering. A plague is an extraordinary event, and the horror it unleashes is extraordinary too, but suffering is anything but extraordinary. Every single day you leave the house, something terrible could happen. At any moment, you could get mortally sick. And the same is true for everyone you know. All of us are hostages to forces over which we have no control. This is the key. A pandemic simply foregrounds, brings to the forefront what's already true of our condition. It's just like that C.S. Lewis quote that we shared the other day, that you are already sentenced to death. Or the question in C.S. Lewis was 1947 as well. He was asked, how should we act in a nuclear age? And he's like, just like you're acting now. He said, it's perfectly ridiculous to go about whimpering and drawing long faces because scientists have added one more chance of painful and premature death to a world which was already bristling with such chances, and in which death itself was not a chance at all, but a certainty. So that's point number 1. People are thinking about their mortality like maybe never before. And that's a good thing. Marcus Aurelius said, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. If I may flip that around, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you think and say and do. I think what you think starts. That goes first. Think, say, and then do. But so, something to think about. I mean, so much of what we do in life, we act as if life will last forever, right? We obsess over pointless stuff all the time. By the way, I hear the media talking about death rates of COVID patients for men and women, but I haven't heard a single mention of death rates of COVID for the 57 other genders that we've heard so much about. It's crazy how all that stuff just goes by the wayside all of a sudden, right? But normally we're focused so much on trying to make as much money as possible, making plans about the very far off future. Of course, it's responsible to make plans for the future, but we're way too focused on that. Because we act as if humans have conquered death because we're so advanced. We certainly haven't. Some stupid pangolin, right? Some guy eats a pangolin on the other side of the world and it could sweep across the world and take us out. That's how much we've conquered death. Some guy eats a bat and a pangolin and people die. Now, this isn't the big one, but who knows when the big one is coming. Memento mori, that's the Latin phrase. It means remember death. It's actually a early Christian church used that as one of their mantras, memento mori. Helps you focus, remember death, helps you focus on what's important and in the moment. Gives you proper perspective as well. I came across a new version of this. So Ronald Reagan had the version that we've shared many times before, or I've shared not on the show, but in the radio show, and I like this a lot, and it's good. So let me share this one, and then I'll share the new one, because it's the same point. Reagan said, this is a commencement address he gave in Notre Dame in 1981. He said, a few years ago, someone figured out that you could condense the entire history of life on Earth into a motion picture that could run 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, right? So you take the history of life on Earth and you put it into a movie that lasts 1 year So imagine you sit down and you're watching a movie of life on Earth and it lasts a year, okay? The United States would not appear on that screen until the last 3.5 seconds of the movie. Not only would a new concept of society come into being in those last 3.5 seconds, a golden hope for all mankind, but more than half the activity, the economic activity of the world, would take place on this continent in that moment. Free to express their genius, American men and women in 3.5 seconds would see such miracles of invention, construction, and production as the world has never seen. So again, a year, you watch a movie for a year, and the last 3.5 seconds is America. Boom, that's it. We're that little blip at the end of the movie. Okay, so that's Reagan's version. I came across this Richard Dawkins version of it. I like this too. He said, spread your arms wide. Spread your arms wide like this. The tip of your left hand marks the beginning of life. Okay, this is it. This is the beginning of life right here. The span from the tip of your left hand all the way to your right shoulder is nothing but bacteria. All right? Right here, all the way to here, that's the life. This is the life of the history of life on Earth is your arm span, right? This is the beginning of life. This is all the way from here to here is bacteria. The first invertebrates all the way to your right shoulder, or the first invertebrates make the entrance near your right elbow, okay? The first invertebrates. The dinosaurs appear in the middle of your palm and die out right here. This is dinosaurs. Homo erectus and Homo sapiens appear at the white part of your fingernail. All of recorded human history, the Cro-Magnon caves of Europe, the god kings of Assyria and Mesoamerica, all the spreading trade routes and codified laws and languages of the world, the rise of nation states, the fall of the Roman Empire, right up to the Rolling Stones and reality TV, all of it could be erased by the single stroke of a nail file. This is the history of life on Earth, and everything we know, everything, from the fall of the Roman Empire to the beginning of human beings to today, is just the little tip off your nail. Does that make you feel very small? I hope so. It does for me. And I think that's good. I think we need to feel small, because we are. In that book, The Plague, the other point is how it can bring us to, how it could bring us together. The hero is a doctor. His name's Riech. He's a committed doctor. From the very beginning, he devotes himself to the resisting of the plague and achieving solidarity with its victims. His sense of purpose is wrapped up in struggle and sacrifice demanded by the sickness. We're going to see so many of this character in the days to come here, and that's a beautiful thing. Each character in the story is defined by what they do when the scourge comes. No one escapes it, but those who revolt against it, who reduce the suffering of others, are the most fulfilled. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, a nurse, and we were talking about her Christian duty in light of this, to go to work and to serve others and to be a light and to love others like she would like to be loved, and even put others above herself. That's pretty amazing. The only villains in this book are those who cannot see beyond themselves. I have no idea how society will react to this. No clue. It could turn at any second, for better or worse, and for stupid, meaningless reasons, that things could just go one way or the other. Right now, I'm encouraged. I saw a CBS Sunday Morning piece the other day, and it was so dumb. It was about how people are panicking, and it showed like the video of the two women in Australia fighting over toilet paper, and like that was their proof, right? So like it was all made up. I hope we stay on this trajectory we're on now of, even though we have to keep our social distance, of coming together. My friend has 3 young kids, and they've noticed that there's a lot more people walking in their neighborhood, right? As family walks. I hope family walks are a thing that stay even after this pandemic ends. So my friend's family noticed people walking outside, and the kids made these signs and put it in the window. Each kid made a sign. One says enjoy, the other says your, and the last one says walk. Enjoy your walk, everyone. We need more of that. Things like that are good. And hopefully, I think, can define us through this. True story. Mike Slater. See you tomorrow. Spread the word.